What's going on, Chum Guzzlers? Welcome back to Bucket of Chum, the Shark Movie Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Captain Steve, and we are kicking off Octopus August with Octopus from 2000, directed by John Ears. I've never seen this movie before. I've had it on my list for a very long time, and I figured Octopus August was probably the best time to watch it for the first time. So without further ado, let's just get into the Letterboxd plot synopsis. And hold on tight because this is a long fucking plot synopsis. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a Russian submarine strays into American waters. On board is a nuclear cargo destined for Castro. The Americans attack and destroy the sub. 38 years later, U.S. submarine Roosevelt is in the same waters. An unknown object attacks and disables the sub with devastating force and drags the vessel to the bottom of the ocean. What lies on the ocean bed beggars belief. Dozens of wrecks, among them the sub destroyed 38 years ago. Whatever was on board has fed a creature of unbelievable size and strength. The only way out is the emergency submersible and a passing cruise ship. Above or below the water, there is no escape from the monster mutant octopus with a nuclear diet. So this has an average rating of 2.4 stars on Letterboxd, which is a little bit on the higher end than what we usually watch here, so that sounds promising. Poster expectations, this is actually kind of a cool poster. It's very reminiscent of like early 2000s straight to DVD kind of vibe, which I mean, like, yeah, most of those movies aren't pretty great, but I really love the vibe of those posters. It just kind of reminds me of like being younger and like checking out all these weird movies for the first time. But basically, it's just an octopus attacking a cruise ship. So I'm kind of just expecting like super bad CGI. It could go one of two ways. So we're either going to get like super bad CGI, or we're going to get a mix of like weird stock footage, kind of like Shark Attack 3, like those kind of vibes, or something like The Asylum, something like that. A little bit of trivia that I read before going into the movie, that the opening scene was edited from Crimson Tide from 1995, which, if I'm not mistaken, is like the Denzel Washington submarine movie. So that was very odd. Also not that surprising. But yeah, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the podcast and you would like to help out the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/bucket of chum. Each month I'm doing an exclusive episode over there. This month we're keeping up with the octopus theme, and I'm going to be checking out Tentacles from 1977. If you can't do that, if you could just give a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or leave a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast, any and all of those things would be greatly appreciated. But now, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your tentacles, testicles, and testicles, and let's dive in. So right away when the movie starts, we see the logo for New Image. So this is the same studio that brought us like the whole Shark Attack series and Raging Sharks and movies like that. So I already feel like my poster predictions are going to be pretty accurate right off the bat. And then right after that, we lead into JFK's speech about the Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that. And then we see a Russian sub tracking down an American sub. And then this captain orders the sub to go like faster and dive deeper. But his second in command is like, no, I don't want to be responsible for the death of all of these people or whatever. And so the captain hugs this man like, yeah, man, good job. And then shoots him in the belly, I guess. So he's dead immediately right off the bat. So this is probably just how they do things in the Russian military, I assume anyways. But then the American sub fires torpedoes at the Russian sub. It takes evasive maneuvers, but the sub is obviously hit and then starts sinking into the water. And as it does, we just see these yellow barrels kind of just leaking out of the submarine, but it looks like they're being thrown down a hill, like very much not underwater. And there's a few scenes in this movie where it looks like there's supposed to be stuff happening underwater, but like it's very clearly not. It doesn't look too bad for like a low budget movie, but it is still fairly obvious. And then we're in Bulgaria 38 years later at the US Embassy, and we get these two spy dudes, Roy and Henry, and they're just talking bullshit about, I don't know, I don't even really care, to be honest. And like one of them, the older dude, is like creeping on some young women as they're walking by. So I mean, just typical fucking CIA bullshit, I guess. And the other one is Roy, and I guess he wants to quit or something like that because he's basically like an analyst, so he's not even like a real field agent by any means. But as they're going through the embassy, this old lady walks past them, and it's very obviously a dude like in a wig and whatnot. But of course, they don't notice this at first. But I mean, we as the audience can pretty easily fucking tell this. And so this old man lady is going around giving people food. And I'm just like, why is this happening in the embassy? Like, do they just let anybody in here to do this? I'm like, this doesn't really make any sense. Like, what are we doing here? But then the the undercover granny leaves, and they leave a bag behind, and this little girl finds it, and she brings it to her mom, and she's like, mommy, and the woman's like, I'm busy right now talking. I don't have time for whatever it is you're doing. And this little girl has clearly seen the bomb that is inside of this bag. So we go outside, and then Roy and Henry see this old lady, and they start following her, and they start asking, like, wait, where's that bag that she was carrying? So they're obviously very observant, but at the same time not observant. They're kind of shitty CIA agents, in my opinion. But we go back inside the embassy, and this bomb fucking explodes. So that little girl and her mom are both really dead at this point. And then this granny man laughs and then starts running away. So the embassy goes up in flames. Everybody's panicking. There's a bunch of injured people on the streets. And then Roy and Henry start chasing this old granny down. And like they lose sight of him for a little bit, but then they finally catch up to him. And he's like stripping down all of his clothes and whatnot as they continue to chase him through the streets. But then this granny eventually drops a bomb. And this person ends up being known as Casper, who's been known to do bombings in the past and whatnot. And so they find the bomb, and it eventually goes off. And we think that Henry is dead. And then Roy starts like chasing after the dude again, and he has him at gunpoint. So this granny dude, Casper, gets in a car. It ends up crashing because Henry shoots at the car. So Henry isn't like quite dead yet, but then he just dies like immediately after this, basically. And then Roy helps Casper out of the car, holding him hostage. And so, like, yay, he's caught the dude. Whoop-de-doo. And then we just go to Washington, and then we see two guys in a car who are talking about this submarine captain named Shaw and Roy. And basically the plan is Shaw is going to go pick up Roy and Casper in the submarine and then bring them back to the U.S. That's all this scene is. We really didn't need this. This was just like filler. And then I guess they kind of tease like that Shaw is a little bit of a like disgraced submarine captain because I guess he stranded a submarine to get a boat full of like Iraqi soldiers or something, but he had to ground the sub in order to do this. So he's basically a disgraced captain at this point. So they're going to send him in along with Roy, even though Roy technically isn't really a field agent, but they're like, yeah, he's all we got. I guess everybody else blew up in the embassy. We can't get anybody else there. I'm like, seems a bit ridiculous, but sure, we'll just go with that so far. And by the way, yes, I am still talking about a movie called fucking Octopus. We're like 20 minutes in, and this is what we've gotten so far. Great. So we see Roy being dropped off, and he opens the trunk of his car, and Casper is inside. And then eventually we see kind of Roy waiting there for a while. And we know this because they fade in and out a bunch of times. So we know that Roy is waiting for, a period of time. But then the sub finally surfaces, and then we just kind of cut to them on the sub. So we cut to Roy and Shaw, and they're like inches away from each other's faces. I'm like, I know we're in a submarine, but like, this is like, what a weird way to just introduce these people. Like, just so bizarre. And then we see some crew playing cards and whatnot, and there's a woman that's with them, Dr. Finch. And then she makes a bet with Brickman, who's like the second in command. And she's like, yeah, if you win, I'll go nude. And if I win, you go nude. And everyone's like, oh my God, yeah, whoa, this is going to be so cool. And so he lays down a hand and he's like, oh yeah, I won. And then she's like, oh no, royal flush, I win. And then she like tries to take his underwear off to like fulfill the bet. And I'm just like, if the tables were turned, like, this would be very, like, way more weird. It's still weird. Still very awkward, but, yeah. Eventually, we learn that Dr. Finch is with the Oceanographic Institute, and because Shaw is, like, a disgraced submarine captain, he's been, like, ordered to, like, help her out as they're, like, tracking there's something in the ocean, like currents or temperatures or some bullshit. Like, it doesn't really matter. But then Shaw and Roy come into the room and everybody kind of stops or whatever. And Shaw doesn't like really care like what they're doing. He just tells everybody to go at ease. And so he introduces Roy to Finch. And like these two are like all flirty with each other like right off the bat. And then immediately she offers her bunk to him. And I'm just like, okay, I guess she's desperate. Like I don't really know what we're fucking doing here. And then like some sexy saxophone music is playing. Like this was made in the 90s. I'm like, guys, this is the 2000s. I'm like, it's not even the 80s or 90s anymore. Like, why are we doing the saxophone music? So yeah, basically so far this movie is complete fucking nonsense, and I haven't seen one goddamn tentacle. They have 8, and they can't even show me one yet. Good God. But anyways, Roy goes and visits Casper, and we learn and accomplish nothing from this, other than we just see that he's also on the submarine. I'm like, well, we already knew that. We didn't fucking need this, but... and then we go to another pointless scene where we go back to Bulgaria, and then we just see this woman who meets this man on the street and tells her about Roy and that he has Casper on a submarine and they're heading to the US. And basically, she's going to go and find him. Great. This whole plot line, by the way, could have just been cut from this fucking movie entirely. It just becomes like such nonsense later on, but I don't know. This dude also says something about like infiltrating a cruise ship, which I totally forgot was a part of this plot description because again, we're like half an hour in and like this is all that's happened so far. Like that's it. We haven't even seen like a hint of an octopus at this point. But basically, the bad guys are going to go take over this cruise ship and then intercept the sub and rescue Casper. That's the whole plan here. Again, pure nonsense. And I guess they also kidnapped, like, the captain's families, like, the captain of the cruise ship, so that's why he's going to be, like, complacent and kind of help them with whatever they need. So, yeah, there's that. So after that, we finally go back to the sub, and then Roy and Finch, like, chit-chat nonsense, and again, being kind of flirty with each other, like, oh, sparks are just flying here. And then the ship, like, starts shaking, and it's being, like, knocked around. The alarms start going off. The rudder is like not responding or something, so they're gonna go send a dive team to check things out. And then meanwhile, Casper has broken or dislocated his thumb so he can get out of one of his handcuffs. And then he like resets it, and they do like all these crunching noises, like very dramatic, like he's like super badass. He's not. And then we see this dive team go out, and the captain and Brickman, they watch from the inside, and then the team says, like, there's something strange going on out there. There's, like, a strange feeling or something. I'm like, okay. And then they spot something moving, and they're attacked, and we kind of see the octopus's mouth as they're dragged away, but of course we don't really see much, and, like, neither do the crew on board either. But eventually we get some blood filling the water, so I mean, that's something that they finally did. And then the crew inside say the dive team have disappeared from their sonar. But then they spot something on the port side on the sonar, but they say that like it's something they can't identify because it's not. They compare like the noise that it's making to other noises they've recorded, but it doesn't match anything in their system or something like that. Again, it's all just complete and utter fucking nonsense so far. And then I'm just looking at my notes now, and I'm realizing Roy and Shaw, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw from Jaws. This has to be a Jaws reference, which I didn't even fucking catch when I was watching the movie. But hey, we got our Jaws reference in here. That's, that's something, I guess. Did we need it? Nope. Do I care about it? Also no. But anyways, Roy tries to tell Shaw not to be a hero and that they should call for help because Shaw just wants to face whatever it is out there. They don't even know what it is, but he's like, yeah, we're going to go face it and kick its ass, even though we have no idea what's going on yet. And then Dr. Finch comes in and she asks for the tapes of the divers from Brickman, and like she gets some pushback, but eventually they're just like, yeah, just log onto the system and you can see the tapes all you want. And then Roy goes to check on Casper, and he's foaming at the mouth while this other crew member is trying to help him. But then he, like, snaps out of it, and he holds this sailor hostage with a piece of, like, broken glass. Again, like, clearly faking it. And then he tells Roy, like, uh-oh, here we go again. I'm like, fucking what? I'm like, what are you talking? Like, here we go again? I'm like, I guess because you two are fighting again? Unclear. Very unclear. And then Roy tells the sailor to, like, be calm and not to worry. And the sailor's like, don't give in to him. I'm ready to die. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, okay, so being on a submarine sounds fucking terrible because this dude is just like, yeah, no, I'm just ready to die. I've been on the sub for far too long. I'm out. Just let this dude kill me. I don't care. I'll die for my country. I mean, ultimately, they should just, like, close the door and lock Casper in this room and be like, yeah, no, we're done with this. We're not gonna give in to you. I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, one dude versus, like, the entire sub, like, you know. But, no, that's not what we're gonna fucking do here. We're basically just gonna let Casper fucking go. But we go back with Shaw and the rest of the crew, and they're trying to get whatever it is outside to follow them. And then Finch comes back and tells Shaw that they're dealing with some sort of big sea creature. So Shaw is like, well, we're just gonna blow it up. I'm like, yeah, sure. So they start sending these mines out, and then we get like a foggy look at the octopus as the mines explode, and then it disappears from sonar. So they all start celebrating. They're like, yeah, we got it. All done. We win. I'm like, no. And then we go back with Roy and Casper, and Roy uncuffs Casper's other fucking hand, and then Casper slits the sailor's throat. I'm like, so good job, Roy. I'm like, this dude was prepared to die, and he just died anyways, and then now you've let this fucking terrorist go, basically. And so, like, they start fighting back and forth, and then naturally, the octopus appears back on the sonar again, and they launch more mines at it. And then the crew braces for impact as the octopus, like, wraps its tentacles around the sub. And we get some, like, blurry looks at it, and we kind of zoom into its eye at one point, I think. The copy I watched was a little bit hard to see in some of this underwater stuff. It's okay looking. I mean, for the early 2000s, it's, like, perfectly fine. But again, we're, like, 40 minutes into the fucking movie at this point, and I'm kind of like, I wanted to see more, you know, octopus action. So, I don't know, maybe the rest of the movie will just be, like, octopus action filled. But anyways, the crew is then just in fucking chaos as the sub rocks around, and people are fucking panicking, and then the sub starts heading for the sea floor, and then it's just like crashing into everything as it hits the bottom, and then it finally comes to a stop on the bottom. Roy is knocked out. Casper is fine, obviously, so he's just, you know, walking about the ship as he wants to. And then we learn that they're like 800 or 850 meters down. Shaw radios for help, and then Brinkman says that, like, they're basically at crush depth and the submarine isn't going to hold. Well, spoiler alert, they end up sinking down further at some point, and it still doesn't fucking implode, so I guess this is just better built than they thought it was. I don't fucking know. But then we go back to the cruise ship. Remember, there's a cruise ship a part of this plot. I forgot because we're 45 fucking minutes in and we barely see the octopus and we're just now getting to the cruise ship part. Like, ugh. But anyways, we see this woman going in for room service. She's basically like the maid. So she starts cleaning up the sheets and whatnot. And when she takes the comforter off the bed, all these bullets fall onto the floor. And then we just hear a woman's voice and we see her holding a gun. And she says something like, eat your teeth, or something stupid like that, and then just shoots her, so she's dead. And then that's all we get of that. I'm like, what the fuck was the point of, like, this was so pointless. This added nothing. Again, we could have cut this whole cruise ship nonsense from the movie entirely. We don't need it. It doesn't add anything. And, like, eat your teeth? Like, what are you talking? She doesn't even shoot her in the face. She, like, shoots her in the chest or stomach or something. So I'm like, this makes even less sense. At least if you were, like, shoot her in the teeth, then, like, I can maybe get on board with this line. But otherwise, this is just pure fucking nonsense. But then we go back into the sub because I guess it was just too expensive to shoot on the ship. Although if I was a betting man, I would say that they probably shot all this stuff in a hotel room and they're just saying that it's a cruise ship. That would be my guess. But anyways, we go back to the sub, and Finch tells Shaw that the creature is big but doesn't know what it is, and probably attacked because they drove through its habitat. And then she's like, how would you feel if someone walked into your living room and pissed on your carpet? I'm like, pretty upset, I guess, but I'm like, I don't know, this is just dumb. This whole... The dialogue in this movie is actually just incredibly stupid. And then Shaw and Finch also do this thing throughout the movie from time to time where they both say the same thing at the same time. And, like, these two aren't even, like, the romantic people that they're trying to push on us, but, like, they sort of do at some point. And it's just so fucking weird. It's just so... I don't know what they were thinking when they wrote this, but it's just fucking wild. But as they're talking, Roy stumbles out, and they tell him, they're like, oh, hey, did you wake up from your nap? Yeah, we were just attacked by something. And then Roy eventually finally tells them that Casper has escaped, and then, like, Shaw kind of rips into him a bit. And then Roy freaks out, saying, like, this is out of my wheelhouse, I'm not a field agent, blah, 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 blah. And then they decide, like, hey, maybe we should start looking for the prisoner. It's like, guys, you're on a fucking sub. Like, it's a finite space. It can't be that hard to find somebody who doesn't belong there. Apparently it is, though, I guess. Apparently nobody else sees this man just walking around. So Finch goes to her lab. She hears some noises, and this is lit like all of this studio's movies with like this blue light. I swear all their movies have the same cinematographer. It all looks the fucking same to me. But anyways, she's creeped up on by Casper. He grabs her by the neck and tells her to do whatever she says, and like he tells her to like send out this buoy or something like that and change some like instrument settings on the ship, and she agrees reluctantly, obviously. Why this civilian has access to all of this shit on the ship, I will never fucking understand. But she does, and she does help him eventually. But then we go back to some of the other crew, and they're just starting to lose their shit and just really not acting like professional sailors here. Like, oh, we're gonna die, boo-hoo. Ugh. Anyways, and they finally notice that Finch has logged into the system and is making this position buoy to basically tell the cruise ship where they are. How they plan to get to the sub or how Casper plans to escape, totally unclear. None of that will be answered. I mean, obviously at some point it does happen, but like I'm not sure what like the initial plan was here, because it seems like there is a lot of moving parts that need to work out in order for this plan to work out. Because if Casper just ended up being in cuffs the whole time, I don't really know how they planned on intercepting a fucking submarine, but what do I know? I'm not a fucking criminal or a Navy sailor, so I don't know. Maybe all these people just know more than I do. But Roy and Shaw finally find them, and Shaw punches Casper, and he manages to launch the buoy by pretending to like pass out. He's like, oh no, I'm passing out. Then he like hits the keyboard, and it launches this position buoy. Well, this upsets the octopus. Oh yeah, remember? There's an octopus in this fucking movie. And so it freaks out. It starts banging the ship, sending it further down, further into the crushed depth, and yet it's still not being crushed. But although some water has started to like leak into the sub and whatnot, and then the octopus manages to get a tentacle in one of the rooms, and then Shaw, Roy, and Finch try to save them, and they decide to like leave the door locked because they're like, no, we can't let this like. I guess once that room floods, like the rest of the ship is probably going to flood, so they have to keep it closed. And so they're going to leave, but Casper leaves before them and fucking locks them in the room. Like, these people are fucking useless. Also, you know how sharks roar in a lot of these cheesy movies? Well, this fucking octopus has like a high-pitched scream like it's a fucking dinosaur in distress. It's one of the most god-awful things I've ever heard. And I really wish they would stop doing this in movies. Like, not all the creatures need to make noise. Sometimes it's scarier when they don't make noise. But anyways, I'm just saying. But we do get some practical tentacle work here as the octopus grabs Shaw and Finch. And then Finch grabs a gun and shoots at it because Roy is useless. He doesn't shoot at fucking anything in this movie. He's the CIA agent. And like, granted, I know he's more of a desk jockey, but I'm just like, dude, you got to do something. Like, fucking anything at this point would be helpful, and he's done nothing. Finch is, like, way more of a badass than he is. But then we cut away from all that chaos and fun to see a sailor shoot himself, or at least implied that he shoots himself. So that's fun, I guess. I don't really know why they did this. Again, there's just a lot of things happening where I'm just like, I don't know why we're here, why we're doing this, but this is it. Back to the cruise ship, they finally get a signal from Casper's buoy, and then they start navigating the ship towards it. So far, the cruise has just been like stock footage of a cruise ship, basically, and then just the terrorists doing voiceover. Again, they should have just cut this whole thing from the fucking movie. It's useless. But anyways, back on the sub, our three heroes return to the bridge, and Brickman, the second in command, tells everyone, he's like, yeah, everyone freaked out and just left. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I guess they couldn't just afford to pay more actors here. That's probably the case. But he then tells them that, like, he sent out a remote camera to look around outside the ship, and that he spotted, like, all kinds of different ships from, like, different countries, different time periods. And it's basically like an international graveyard, as he puts it. And then they spot the Leningrad, which is the Russian sub from the beginning of the movie. And they're like, oh yeah, I thought it was just like a myth, and like this submarine said it sunk this other submarine, but no one ever found it. And it's like, whoa. They also spot the barrels of toxic waste, and then Finch asks Brinkman to get a water sample. And so Shaw and Roy then finally start searching the ship for crew and Casper, of course. And they just come across a room like with a bunch of dead bodies. Like, I don't know if Casper did this or the octopus, like if this is the room from earlier. Like, I have no fucking idea. It's totally unclear as to why there's just all these dead bodies. I'm like, did they get knocked around when the ship was attacked? Like, I have no idea. And then as Roy is searching a room, he's attacked by Casper and they fight. Roy finally gets him at gunpoint and is about to shoot him when Shaw comes in and says, like, no, you got a job to do. The reactor on this sub is going to go critical in like 25 minutes. I'm like, okay, that's something else we got to deal with now. So they cuff Casper, and then Finch tells everyone that the creature used to be an octopus. And I'm like, it still is, but semantics, I guess. And then she gives like some science jargon, and basically these barrels were full of anthrax. And then the octopus has an iron deficiency, which is why it's so aggressive. Sure, why not? Do I need any of this explanation? No, but there it is for us. So they come up with a plan to put some chemical in a compartment in the sub, and like that's what the octopus wants. It's not after them particularly. It's after like protein and iron, I guess, for its iron deficiency. So yeah, basically they're going to spread this chemical around to distract the octopus while they escape or something. So they start doing this, and the ship is bashed more while they make it to the submersible, and they have to swim to the submersible through like a flooded chamber, even though it's not like fully flooded, like there's still like plenty of headroom there. But then they uncuff Casper because he can't swim with them on. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's just keep taking the handcuffs off this man. This has worked out so well for us so far this movie. So one by one, they get into the flooded chamber and start headed for the sub, and Finch takes her pants off to swim better. Nobody else does this. Only the woman does. In freezing cold water. But then she gets down there, and she's grabbed by the tentacles, and like these were CGI for the most part. They didn't look terrible, like for this time period. But then Brickman comes in, he saves the day, distracts the octopus, and the octopus ends up taking him away, leaving Finch pantless and swimming to the submersible. So the rest of them make it into the sub, and they tell Shaw like that Brickman didn't make it. And then Finch starts getting the sub started, and then Shaw asks Roy if he has any lemons because they're about to cook up some calamari. Oh, fuck off, Shaw. Like, just so stupid, my god. And then the octopus slaps the ship around, and the sub won't disengage from the bigger submarine, but they hit the controls with their hands and whatnot, and that works. That just makes everything work, like it's fucking Back to the Future. So this little sub lifts off from the bigger sub, and the big sub explodes, rocking the smaller one around, and they just make a very dramatic escape. And then they're like almost immediately at the surface, and they surface right in front of the cruise ship, and some of the passengers spot them and whatever, and then they make it on board. They go to the bridge like right away, and then the bad guys show up, and like they start holding everyone at gunpoint. Casper celebrates. He's like, oh yeah, I made it. Oh. And then they take our heroes down to the engine room, and then we see a helicopter is approaching, getting ready to pick like Casper and the rest of these terrorists up, I guess. Although I don't even know that the plan was to pick up the rest of like this terrorist crew. Or I guess some of them said that they were like passengers and some of them were crew and they were kind of like hidden. So like, I guess you could argue that they don't know who all of these people are, but I don't know. It's still pretty fucking stupid. The octopus starts to surface and heads for the ship. Casper and crew have a bomb, and they've set the timer for 14 minutes. So the octopus starts attacking the ship, finally realizing it can, like, deep sea or deep rising this bitch. Like, this is basically all this part of the movie is. It's just a ripoff of Deep Rising for, like, the last, like, 10 minutes. But anyways, one of the terrorists on the bridge starts shooting at the octopus, but it grabs her and kills her, like, it eats her. This is all CGI, like, the octopus and whatnot, obviously. It doesn't look horrible. Like, it's kind of what I was hoping for. Like, this is the type of shit that I really wanted to see in this movie, and we don't get it till the very end. Looking at you, Jurassic World Rebirth, motherfuckers. But then everyone on the ship starts panicking as the tentacles flail about and people start shooting at it. Again, grabs another one, eats them, more CGI. And Roy is about to be shot, but then Finch, like, lifts her dress up a little bit and shows the terrorist her legs, and the terrorist's like, oh, yeah? And then she kicks him in the nuts, saving the day, basically. Again, what are we fucking doing here? And then I guess at some point Shaw has been shot or injured in the leg. I don't really care. So now the plan is Shaw's going to disarm the bomb while Finch and Roy find Casper. And I assume maybe also deal with the octopus in some capacity. So they get to the deck and Casper is about to be lifted off by a helicopter, and Roy holds him at gunpoint while the octopus is rocking the ship about. And I'm like, just fucking shoot him already. And even Finch says, like, come on, shoot him. And he's like, I can't do it, not in cold blood. And I'm like, you are fucking useless. I'm like, you are letting this, like, fucking terrorist get away with this while you're probably gonna die from this octopus. And you're just like, nah, man, I can't do it. Like, you're not a good dude. You're fucking useless. Like, you think this octopus would be an octopussy, but the only pussy here is fucking Roy. Good God. So the octopus comes in and fucks up the helicopter and Casper in all its CGI glory. So Roy didn't have to do anything. Luckily, the octopus took care of it for him. And then the octopus sinks down. Finch and Roy go back to Shaw. Shaw can't disarm the bomb. There's like 3 minutes left. And they're like, oh, what if we just like throw it overboard or like feed it to the octopus? And they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. But then they do this like lovey-dovey shit. Like Shaw gives Roy one of his medals and he's like, yeah, this is my Bronze Star. You can take this. But make sure you make it back, or like some dumb shit like that. I'm like, we have 3 minutes before this fucking bomb explodes. You guys are doing this shit? What are we doing here? And then Finch kisses Roy, and he goes off as Shaw and Finch go to the deck. And then Roy is already in the sub. There's like 45 seconds left as the octopus chases him. I'm like, I swear if Roy lives, I'm going to throw my fucking TV in the trash. The timer reaches 0. The octopus has grabbed onto the sub, and it explodes. Finch and Shaw look for Roy, and Roy surfaces. So now I need a new TV, because what the actual fuck? Like, how did he survive this? He had 45 seconds left on the timer. The octopus grabbed onto it, it fucking exploded. And yet somehow Roy is just like, not even a scratch on him. Like, he's perfectly fine. Good God. So anyways, Shaw kisses Finch when they're on the deck. She doesn't seem to want this, but he does it anyways. And then we just fucking freeze frame on Super Roy splashing around in the water, and then we roll credits. This movie was fucking stupid. Like, we barely got any octopus. The plot was dumb as hell. This whole thing with the cruise ship, as I said, is just like merely there to rip off Deep Rising, which I think came out like 2 years before this. Like, we should have just ended it with the octopus blowing up, with the submarine blowing up, basically when they were underwater. Not the mini sub, like the big sub. Like, the ending should have been them getting away in the tiny sub. Like, fucking forget about Casper, let him blow up in the sub too. We could have cut down like 5 to 10 minutes of runtime, which this movie needed. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. We could have cut 10 minutes from this movie. Like, it seriously did not need to be this long. The CGI at the end with the octopus wasn't bad. Like, it was kind of more of what I wanted. I wanted all of this throughout the whole fucking movie. And I'm also pretty sure they reused footage from, like, some of their other movies. Like, I can't put my finger on which movies, but I'm just like, I feel like I've seen a couple of these underwater scenes before. And I know they definitely have done that for their movies in the past and whatnot. I've definitely covered some of them where I've noticed they've reused shots, and they definitely did this again. And, like, that's besides the footage that they stole from Crimson Tide or whatever. But overall, this is a 1 star for me. Like, I wanted a goddamn octopus movie, and all I got was some, like, cheesy, half-ass spy thriller wannabe with an inconvenient octopus. But boy, I can't wait till next week, because we're taking a look at Octopus 2, River of Fear. Why is there an octopus in the river? Well, I'm sure we'll find out unless I have an aneurysm before then. But I'll see you guys next time for even more Bucket of Chum.